start. Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, so much for coming out to tonight's Think and Drinks. For those who don't know, Think and Drinks are a free monthly speaker series that happens on the first Thursday of every month. And this year, we are focusing on stories of great women from the Great Lakes. And so I think this woman pretty much exemplifies it to a T. So I am not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let Christa Bauer from the Racine Heritage Museum take it away.
Thank you. We'll switch spots here. Well, hello. I am very happy to be here and talk about Laurel Clark. It's an honor to be able to talk about her. She's an awesome, awesome lady, an awesome part of Racine and Racine's history. And the fact that I get to be here and discuss her is really cool. Like Caroline said, my name's Christa Bauer. I'm the educator at the Racine Heritage Museum. Has anyone been there before? Come on down. It's great. You can come say hi to me. It'll be fun. I promise. Hello again. Yes. So to start out with, though, I just want to begin by saying Laurel did pass away in 2003. And so with that, this is recent history, right? That means that a lot of her family is still surviving, and they obviously care about her a lot. And so I hope if any of them are watching or anyone knew Laurel, that I do her justice, first of all, and just know that it's different to talk about someone who passed away so recently rather than, way back in history where I usually talk about people. So, but let's begin talking about Laurel because she is incredible. To start off with, Laurel was born in Iowa, but she called Racine her home. Racine was where she grew up, where she lived for quite a while. She went to William Horlick High School and graduated in 1979. From interviews that I read and videos that I watched, her teacher said she described herself as a boring straight-A student. Looking back now, I would say we have to disagree with that, right? She's definitely was not a boring straight-A student, but all of her teachers saw something in her that they knew she was going to be someone someday. Do we have any educators in the room? You know those students where you can just tell, right? They're going to do something with their lives, and that was Laurel. After high school, she graduated, and she attended university. She went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, and she received her bachelor's degree in zoology in 1983. And after that, she decided to continue her education. From the first slide, I'm sure you could tell, she was a doctor. So she went on to get her doctorate in medicine and graduated in 1987. After medical school, she went through postgraduate medical training at National Naval Medical Center, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, and she focused on pediatrics. That's something else that was really special about her is before everything else, her family and her son was the most important thing to her. So I had the opportunity to have a phone call with her brother, and it was really fun to be able to chat with him. And he told me a story, and he said that while she was in medical school, she met a man who loved to sail. And she went to Florida for spring break one year, and they spent the entire week sailing, just sailing in Florida. And her brother said it made her catch the sailing bug. And from then on, she just wanted to sail and be on the water. He said that she did not do much sailing on Lake Michigan, a little, but most of it was everywhere else that she traveled. She went a lot of places. During medical school, though, she actually did active duty training with the diving medicine department at the Naval Experimental Diving Unit in March of 1987. Once she completed all of her degrees, she decided to join the Navy. Just to add more to what she accomplished, right? And that's something we'll notice about her. You think she's done, she's not done. She just keeps going. She keeps adding things. The following year, she completed Navy undersea medical officer training at the Naval Undersea Medical Institute in Groton, Connecticut. And she also went through diving medical officer training. Right, of course. At the Naval Diving and Salvage Training Center in Panama City, Florida. And she was designated a radiation health officer and undersea medical officer. Okay, so when researching, I did not know what that meant. I'm sure. Does anyone know what that means here? Okay, good. Because, yeah? Good. I'm glad one person. Would you like to tell us what it means?
Well, the dive locker in Panama is one of the primary dive centers in the United States. That's where all the tier 1 divers are coming out of.
Wow.
Actually, me and my friend here, Mr. Gordon, worked with them.
That's
in
awesome.
2018 here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Wow.
Driving the Mark 5 Moto 1 dive suit.
Wow. That's really cool. Yeah, so an underseas medical officer, along with that, this is from the Navy website. This is what the definition is. So be ready. A small community within Navy medicine, which primarily performs special duty physicals for divers, submariners, special operators, and nuclear trained personnel. The role of the UMO is a mix of general operational medicine that is expected of all general medical officers, tailored to specific duty concerns to the community served. UMOs receive specialized training in these 2 key areas to ensure that they can adequately screen service members for conditions that could jeopardize the mission or lead to harm in diving, submarine, or radiation health environments. That's a lot for one person to do, right? That's a lot of training to go through. And that's what she did. In this photo right here, that is Laurel. And behind her, that is her husband, and we'll talk about him. So, when talking with family members, she met her husband at Navy dive school. All the guys were amazed at how amazing of a swimmer she was. She was really good. She would outswim them all. She was that good, right? And according to her brother, her husband challenged her to a race and wanted to see if he could win. When she wasn't looking and turned her back, he tied on weights to her. And she still outswam him. So she was really good, right? She was really good. They were married. His name is Dr. John Clark. He was also a Navy captain and a flight surgeon. They had one son together, and their son was 8 when she went on her mission. She loved activities like scuba diving. Who would have thought, right? Parachuting and rock climbing. So she loved adventure. She loved the thrill. Obviously, astronaut was not outlandish to her, right? Yeah. She loved adventure. That's what she wanted to do. So her husband was one of the men, one of the people who, after she perished in the accident, he wrote up and helped prepare the 400-page report on the disaster. And he helped implement and put in more safety precautions and start advocating for that. So even with all her training and qualifications, like I said, her most important thing was family. Family was first. This is the family photo in her flight suit. That's pretty cool, right? You can imagine her son would show that photo and be like, that's my mom. She went to space, right? Like, how cool is that? She, after all of her training, was stationed in Yuma, Arizona, and she went on several overseas deployments, and she practiced medicine in multiple environments. And up until she went up into space, she was, you know, a doctor. She was practicing on people. And we'll watch a video in a little bit that says that she was excited to be a test subject for once instead of like testing people. Clark performed numerous undersea dives to evacuate people from submarines in medical emergencies. Has anyone ever dragged someone out of a submarine before? No. On a daily basis right now. Can you imagine the weight of not only like diving down, but having to get people out? It would be a lot. So she was strong, physically and mentally, to be able to handle all of that. And after 2 years of operational experience, she was designated as a Naval Submarine Medical Officer and Diving Medical Officer. Her brother told me a story that in 1990, she was a medical officer of a submarine base in Scotland. And while she was there, women could not go on missions underwater. They could not be in submarines. That's what he told me. And so the captain of the submarine said, well, I don't care what they say. I want you to come on this mission. So she went on a 3-day mission. The captain did not ask permission from her supervisor. She slept in the medical bay, did research, helped out, and then word got to DC that she was doing this. And basically, her supervisor said, you cannot do that again. That's the only time. One of those do it and ask for forgiveness later sort of deals, right? Yeah. So she was able to get that hands-on experience. While she was in Scotland, she also went diving with Navy SEALs. That was a huge thing that she talked about. And then after that, she underwent 6 months of aeromedical training at the Naval Aerospace Medical Institute in Pensacola, Florida, and was designated a naval flight surgeon. Like I said, we're just going to keep adding things. We're just going to keep adding things. And once again, I did not know what a naval flight surgeon was. So I looked up the definition for you. So a naval flight surgeon practices preventative medicine first and foremost. He or she is the natural interface between the practice of medicine, the science of safety, and the profession of aviation. To accomplish the job, the naval flight surgeon makes regular visits to squadron spaces, constantly assessing squadron esprit, safety consciousness, and the mental health of the aircrew, and critical support personnel. Additionally, the flight surgeon flies with the squadron as aircrew to observe in-flight stressors and crew coordination. And the training of a naval flight surgeon, therefore, includes subjects ranging from the physiology of flight to industrial medicine, environmental hazards on the investigation, and the investigation of aircraft accidents. So she had to learn all of that in order to be certified. That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, I thought a history major was a lot, but that's way more. She gets more props than me. That's okay. It's a fun picture. I love this one. So her qualifications, are you ready for this? This is all of her military qualifications. Included radiation health officer, undersea medical officer, diving medical officer, submarine medical officer, and naval flight surgeon, basic life support instructor, advanced cardiac life support provider, advanced trauma life support provider, and hyperbaric chamber advisor. It's a lot. It's a lot. So Clark was actually selected for training in 1996. Because of this, the family moved down to Texas, and she qualified for flight after 2 years of training, but she worked in the astronaut office payloads and habitability before going on her first flight in 2003. So from different sources that I read, she actually went through the trial process twice to become an astronaut. And the first time she was not accepted. And the second time she was. And she was accepted and did the training and the test while she was pregnant.
Wow.
I just had a baby 5 months ago. And if you had asked me to go through astronaut training while I was pregnant, I would have said, absolutely not. No matter how much I want that, I want to take a nap. That's like all I wanted to do, right? Here's what happens when you undergo astronaut training. This is all from NASA's website. So you undergo different tests, simulations of what space is like, which includes virtual reality simulations. They train for spacewalks in the pool, and every 10 hours you train underwater. That's 1 hour of spacewalk that you get. That's how much training you need just to do 1 hour. They had to learn how to fly an airplane that had a similar approach and landing of a space shuttle. They undergo a psychological test, which includes basically, can you think clearly if you're going to be in a dangerous situation? A swimming test. You have to swim the length of a 25-meter pool 3 times without stopping and tread water for 10 minutes in a flight suit.
Yeah.
She was pregnant, you guys.
So she had the, so they had to float after they had done the swim.
Yeah.
And
Yep, that's from
All
from
in one.
from what I could find from NASA. That's
Wow.
yes, it's a lot.
yeah.
Make sure your body is definitely physically fit for space travel. They also have an altitude chamber test, military water survival training. She probably already knew all that, right? Scuba qualifications. She got that one down. She's good. Like I said, virtual reality lab, neutral buoyancy lab, and then just technical courses that you have to pass. So when she was selected for this mission, she was a mission specialist. And what her mission was the Columbia STS-107 mission. That means she was basically there to conduct various experiments. So she flew aboard the Columbia and she logged 15 days, 22 hours, and 20 minutes in space. It was a 16-day mission. They worked 24 hours a day, and they had 2 shifts. The crew conducted approximately 80 experiments. 80 experiments in a little under 16 days. This mission was dedicated to science and research, and Clark was focused on the bioscience experiments. So one of these was gardening in space, what happened to plant life, and basically studying gene transfer in plants. Gravity and its effect on humans, specifically osteoporosis, is what her focus was. And she took part in many more experiments, injected with tracer chemicals, donated blood, because you don't know what blood does while you're in space, right? So donated blood, collected samples of saliva and urine, and then kept a log of how well she slept and what she ate. Like I said, she was ready to be the guinea pig, is what she said. She was ready to be the test subject. She also helped create an astronaut treadmill for the International Space Station. I love all these pictures. One thing I also read is she was always smiling. And I think you can tell from the pictures that she was. So in this mission, she obviously would see Earth quite a few times when she was able to get to the little porthole. And she described her view in an email to her family, saying that she saw lightning spreading over the Pacific, the aurora australis lighting up the entire visible horizon with the city glow of Australia below, the crescent moon setting over the limb of the earth, the vast plains of Africa, and the dunes on Cape Horn, rivers breaking through tall mountain passes. And she was especially happy to see Wind Point Peninsula. That's in Racine, Wisconsin. It's crazy to hear everything she saw because it's a sight we're never going to see, right? Few people get to experience that. And I can only imagine the joy that she felt to be doing not only something her adventurous spirit loved, but to be helping others with her experiments as well. So like I said, people knew she was going to be something. And one of those people was a teacher. But I want to show you this video so you can get kind of the spirit of Dr. Clark, who she was, and how she viewed the mission.
We have booster ignition and liftoff of Space Shuttle Columbia with...
As Columbia blasted into the last frontier this morning, Racine native Laurel Clark was along for the ride.
This mission is just extremely exciting, and I still feel very fortunate to be assigned to this mission.
Almost ready.
It's 7 astronauts working 12-hour shifts for 16 days, coordinating science experiments from more than 70 countries.
But science for hundreds of years has spanned the differences between cultures and between countries.
Back in Racine, Bill Freyer's not surprised astronaut Clark's so at ease working across borders and backgrounds. He was, after all, her world affairs teacher at Horlick High School.
She really stood out well above the other kids in the class, and you really could see that someday she was going to succeed and really be somebody special.
A doctor, Clark admits she's a kid in a candy store on this trip. She spent 2 years practicing, mostly on other people. Now she's about to become a medical guinea pig herself.
I'm excited to be a test subject because I think that's how we get answers, is by studying people. And as a physician, I understand how important it is to collect data on people.
And back at Horlick, Bill Freyer understands he may have had a part in making it happen.
When something like this happens, where you can see one of your students has really amounted to something and has really become somebody of significance, it says that, yeah, you really did have a meaning that day. You really did touch somebody.
And encourage them to make history. Rebecca Clayfish, 12 News at 6.
You can tell from the video that she had a very servant heart. And her whole purpose of going on the mission, of course she was going to enjoy being in space, but her purpose was to help other people, to do these science experiments so that other people could be helped in the future. And one thing I tell groups whenever I talk to them is we live at a fortunate time in history in terms of having the ability to watch videos of some of these people, having the ability to hear their words. And so I think if I have the ability to show you her talking, she's the one I want to show you, right? So in her final email, she wrote to her family. She wrote, "Whenever I do get to look out, it's glorious. Even the stars have a special brightness." And I included this photo because you can see right here. It's where she's able to look out on Earth and see that special brightness. So some information about the Columbia. I'm sure that a lot of you remember that day. I asked my parents and I said, "Do you remember?" And they all said, They remember exactly where they were, the exact time when they heard about it. So the Columbia was actually named after the first American ship to circumnavigate the globe. It was the first of 5 space shuttles to fly in space, and the first shuttle to be reused on missions. It was the heaviest of the 5 shuttles, and it operated for 22 years, went on 28 missions, 300 total days in space, and 4,000 orbits around Earth. The shuttle also carried the first female commander of American air flight mission, the first ESA astronaut, the first astronaut of Indian descent, and the first Israeli astronaut. All were carried on the Columbia. And 2 of these were on the mission with her. So you can see Laurel here. So Laurel's right there. The other members of the crew were Commander Rick D. Husband, pilot William C. McCool, David M. Brown, Kalpana Chawla. She was the first woman of Indian origin to be on a mission. Michael P. Anderson and Ilan Ramon, the first Israeli astronaut. And this is before they all got on the Columbia. So I'm sure all of you have heard about the unfortunate accident and know what happened. But as the shuttle was returning on February 1st in 2003, it broke apart just over Texas, 16 minutes before it was supposed to land in Florida. And unfortunately, Clark and all the other crew members perished in that tragic accident. This image kind of shows what happened. So after the disaster, they got together a group of people called the Columbia Accident Investigation Board to figure out what went wrong. During launch, a piece of insulating foam broke off of the external tank and hit the thermal protection tiles on the left wing. And so what ended up happening was when the Columbia re-entered Earth, this damage from the launch allowed the hot gases to penetrate the heat shield and destroy the structure of the wing, which in turn caused the entire shuttle to break apart. Laurel was buried in Arlington National Cemetery, and she was actually buried on March 10th, which was her birthday. And this is an image of not only her tombstone, but also the memorial to the crew members there. And other memorials were put in place for them as well. There's the Columbia Memorial Space Center, Columbia Hills on Mars's Gustav crater is named after them, and Columbia Point in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains in Colorado is named after them as well. She was a member of the Aerospace Medical Association, Society of U.S. Naval Flight Surgeons. She was posthumously awarded all of the above: the Congressional Space Medal of Honor, the NASA Space Flight Medal, the NASA Distinguished Service Medal, the Defense Distinguished Service Medal, and she was the recipient of the Navy Commendation Medals, National Defense Medal, and Overseas Service Ribbon. In Racine, we also made our own dedication to her in the form of a fountain right next to Lake Michigan, the place that she loved so much. There's a splash pad there for kids. She loved kids, as we remember. Pediatrics and her son, obviously more than everything. And you can go there. There's a memorial to her. There's information on space and her mission. So it's a great place to go and remember her. and to stand by the water, right? Stand by the water and see what she loved. She also had quite a few things named after her, though. Asteroid 51827 was named for Laurel. Clark Hill on Columbia Hill on Mars. L. Clark is an interior crater in the lunar crater Apollo. Clark Hall at the Florida Institute of Technology. Clark Auditorium at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center in Maryland. And Clark left her mark, most of all, on the hearts of so many people. And the loss of her was unimaginable, absolutely unimaginable. And even from the video, like I showed you earlier, she touched the lives not only of the Racine community, but the world as she was working to make a better future for everyone. She was truly remarkable and someone I would have loved to sit down and talk to. And I'm sure as a little girl, I would have looked up to her so much if I had, been a little older and but looked up to her a lot. And even now, I'm sure little girls who want to be astronauts can look up Laurel Clark, right? I learned from her brother that her favorite constellation is Orion. And I'm sure that being among the stars was an absolute dream for her. And he said he wished he could be here today, but he would be looking up at Orion and thinking of her and thinking of all of us. And now every time I see Orion, I'm going to think about Laurel too. One of the experiments up in space involved silkworm cocoons. And while she was up there, one of them hatched and she saw a moth. And this is what she said about it. There was a moth in there and it still had its wings crumpled up and it was just starting to pump its wings up. Life continues in lots of places and life is a magical thing. Thank you, guys. Are there any questions? Keep in mind, I don't know any real personal things about Laurel, but I can answer it to the best of my ability. Yes.
You were able to find out and identify the people after the crash or burn up?
Do you mean individual?
Yeah.
Only by like helmets and whatnot. The remains a little harder to be able to find. It was one of those.
Kind of burnt up by that.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
She was pregnant. What happened with the baby?
Oh, that was her 8-year-old son.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
okay,
She only had one son
well,
who was
I was
8.
trying to do those years in my head as to when she.
So she went through training in 96 and her son, 95, 96. Her son was born in 96.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking this was like 2000 and.
No, she had to qualify for training quite a few years
Yeah,
before going into space.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I thought, but I thought,
No, she only had one child and it was her son. Yes.
So as she was going through some of these training,
Mhm.
And she's pregnant,
Mhm.
do you happen to know, was she dealing with the G-force training too? Did she have to go through all that while she was pregnant?
I would assume she would still have to go through some of that. Also, I don't know how different training was in 95, 96 as compared to now. I know now they probably have way different training in terms of that, but I would assume they might have done something a little different, but I think she still had to go through that. Which, not a fun time, right? Anyone else? Yes.
Do you know what her son has gone on to do?
I don't know exactly what he's gone on to do. The families wanted to keep their lives pretty private afterwards, which is understandable, especially the kids, protecting the kids from the public eye. I know that I think he has a daughter now, and her name is Laurel. So, any other I saw your hand first, and then we'll go to you.
You
Yes.
can add to your collection of memorials. There is in the International Forest of Friendship in Atchison, Kansas, which is where Amelia Earhart's birthplace is.
Yeah.
There is a memorial to the Columbia.
Really? Okay. I will add that.
Forest of Friendship.
That's good to know.
Where?
Atchison, Kansas.
It's where Amelia Earhart was raised, born and raised.
Very cool. Yes. What was your question?
No, they quit the shuttle program.
Yes.
Since that, after her,
So the shuttle, the space shuttle program was officially ended in 2011. And then since then, we have not had many missions to space, and they've been more with private companies. Yes,
What was the actual date of the breakup of the,
February 1st, 2003.
for some reason I was thinking it was in January.
It's close. It's close.
Yeah.
But February 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, Challenger. hmm Two disasters that definitely changed a lot for the United States and just for space travel in general. Any other questions? Well, thank you all. It's been great to be here. I'll let you.
Perfect. Go with
There we
that.
go.
Thank you so much, Christa, for sharing Laurel's amazing life. I really enjoyed learning about her, and yeah, thank you all again for coming out. If you enjoyed this program, we do have other ones like it coming up. So a couple of upcoming events of note next week. On the 12th, I believe, we're having a workshop or like a behind the scenes viewing of some artifacts in our collections about the Manitowoc 28, so the 28 submarines that were built here. And then next month on October 3rd, we are going to be having our next Think and Drink, which is going to be about the history of female pirates. So something different, but something also very interesting. If you guys enjoy these programs and want to see more like it, please consider supporting the museum. Support can come in so many different kinds of ways. It can come in the form of donation. It can come in the form of becoming a member here at the museum, or just, telling your friends and family about these programs and keep on coming back. So thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.